By the end of this video, you're gonna know how to legally set up your business the right way, because it really only takes 4 simple steps. Because if you think you just need to get an LLC and then boom, you're in business, you could potentially be setting yourself up to be sued down the line or have a surprise tax bill from the IRS. And yes, these are legitimate concerns. More than 53% of small businesses are involved in lawsuits, and this video is gonna make sure that you're not one of them. I've spent the last 15 years as a top 2% business attorney, setting up thousands of businesses the right way, and you're about to get everything that I know for free. Stick around till the end, and I'll even give you a free gift showing you where your specific business is vulnerable to being sued. Step 1, business. I'm joking. I don't even know where I got this thing. Step 1, business. Selecting, forming, and protecting your business entity is the very first step. And by entity, I mean the legal structure that defines how your business operates, how your taxes are paid, and business liabilities are separated. Think of it like an armored truck that holds and transports all of your business stuff. First, select the right entity. If you choose the wrong entity for your business, you open yourself up to personal liability, which means that if somebody actually sues you, you could lose your house, your money, your car, and all of your other personal assets. Let me walk you through how this can actually play out if you pick the wrong entity. Let's say, for example, that you're sued for breach of contract, product injuries, IP infringement, or really any of the other many potential lawsuits. The other party will file a lawsuit in court. If they win, they're awarded a judgment against you. And a judgment is really just an amount of money that you're legally required to pay them by the court. To keep it simple, let's say that the judgment is for $1 million. If you pick the wrong business entity or didn't set it up the right way, the judgment would be against you personally. If you don't have $1 million in your personal bank account, which most people starting out a business don't, the party suing you could put a lien on your house, your cars, and your bank accounts, plus collect a percentage of any wages you're making until the entire $1 million is paid off. You even run the risk of having to file for bankruptcy. But if you had the correct business entity in place, the judgment would be against your business entity, not you as an individual. That means that the other party could only collect what the business entity owns, like product inventory and the money in your business bank account. They couldn't touch your personal assets at all. Again, think of your entity like an armored truck that transport your business and its assets. If someone steals the truck, i.e. if they sue you, they can only get what's in the truck. Now let's talk about which entity you should pick to protect yourself. I'll also give you my recommendation. You have 4 business entities to choose from. The first is a sole proprietorship, which really isn't a legal entity at all, but I get asked about it all the time from my clients, so I figured I'd include it. A sole proprietorship is what your business defaults to if you don't set up one of the other entities. Your business is just owned by you individually. There isn't a truck transporting all your business stuff. You're literally carrying it all on your shoulders. A sole proprietorship may sound appealing due to less paperwork, but it really gives you 0 liability protection. In other words, if your business gets sued, the other party gets access to your personal assets. If the business has multiple owners, the next entity to consider is a partnership. This is the default entity if you have more than one owner. Similar to a sole proprietorship, a partnership offers no liability protection. If one partner does something on behalf of the partnership and is sued by a creditor, a vendor, a customer, or anyone else, they could come after you personally as well as your partner. If you do choose this route, a well-drafted partnership agreement is always recommended. The next entity to consider is a corporation. If formed and run correctly, a corporation does offer the owner's personal liability protection. You have 2 options with a corporation. The first one's a C Corp, which faces double taxation. I won't get into the weeds in this video, but to summarize, if a C Corp has profits at the end of the year, it's taxed on the profits. Any shareholder that receives dividends also has to pay individual taxes on their dividends. This is the double taxation. There's also what's called the S Corporation, which does not face double taxation and can actually offer big tax savings when it's properly structured and maintained. That's beyond the scope of this video, but I've done other videos on S Corps here. Setting up and running the corporation requires navigating several ongoing formalities, including filings, meeting minutes, and agreements. It can be very time consuming. The last entity to consider is the one I normally recommend for online business owners, and it's called a limited liability company, or LLC for short. An LLC that's properly set up and operated is considered separated from its owners in the law's eyes. So it provides liability protection and keeps your personal assets from being targeted if you actually get sued. You do have some formalities like state filings and agreements to navigate, but not nearly as many as you do with a corporation. The LLC is very, very flexible, and it's a great structure to use as you grow your business. For taxes, if you're a single member, sole member LLC, Taxes just flow to you and through your personal income tax return, similar to the sole proprietorship. You can also elect to have your LLC be taxed as an S corporation or a C corp, or even a partnership if there's more than one member. Here's a chart breaking down the differences between the entities. I've also put a link to this chart in the description below. Now that you know which entity you're using, the next step is to correctly form it. Since I recommend an LLC, there are up to 12 steps to forming your LLC, depending on whether you're an e-commerce or product-based business or a service-based business. So step 1, choose your business name. Later I'll discuss how to choose the best name, so stick around for that. You want your business name to match your brand name, but don't worry. If you decide you want your brand name to be different, you can actually file what's called a DBA, short for doing business as. For now, keep it simple and match your business name to your brand name if you can. Step 2, set up your business address. If you plan to work from home and are okay with your home address visible on public records and your website, then use your home address as your business address. If you want more privacy and other benefits that come with using a virtual address, I recommend setting up a virtual address instead. I discuss in detail how to do that in another video here. Step 3, set up your registered agent. Every LLC needs a registered agent, which can be you as the individual owner, a third-party individual, or even a third-party company. If you don't want your home address to be public, then I recommend using another individual, like a lawyer or a third-party company. Step 4, decide whether the LLC will be run by managers or the members. There are several reasons to select one or the other depending upon your partners, your goals, etc. Step 5, prepare and file your articles of organization, also called a certificate of formation or certificate of organization with your state's Secretary of State's office. This is the formal legal document that will create your LLC legally. Once approved by the state, your LLC is legally recognized, meaning it can operate and enter into contracts. Think of the articles like your birth certificate for the LLC. I almost always recommend filing this in your home state for various reasons, including that you have to file this document where you're doing business anyway. Step 6, get your federal tax ID number, also known as your EIN with the IRS. The EIN is like your social security number for your business. You can file it online with the IRS. And pro tip, make sure you're on the actual real IRS website when applying for the EIN. A lot of scam sites try to trick you into giving information or paying for an EIN. Filing for an EIN is free, so if you're being charged, you're on the wrong site. Step 7, open a business bank account. This separates your personal finances from your business finances. It can be done at any bank, including where you personally bank. This step is crucial as you don't want to commingle your personal and business money. Keep everything separate to make sure you keep that personal liability protection that the LLC offers. Step 8. If your state requires state income tax, register the LLC with your state Department of Revenue to obtain a state income tax ID. It's similar to an EIN, but it's at the state level. Step 9, if your state requires sales tax and you're running an e-commerce business, register the LLC with your state Department of Revenue to obtain a sales tax ID. It's also called a seller permit in some states. Step 10, if your city or county requires a business license for the type of business that you're running, apply for and obtain that business license. Step 11, prepare and execute an operating agreement. This doesn't have to be filed anywhere, but it's a key document and agreement between the members and the LLC itself that dictates things like how the business should run, what happens if a member wants to leave, for example, what happens if a member passes away or becomes disabled, and so on. Without this, you and your LLC will default to the LLC laws of your state, which you may or may not want. Think of your operating agreement like the legal playbook for your LLC. It helps prevent misunderstandings, protects your business's limited liability status, and clarifies how things should be done. Your operating agreement is also more evidence that the LLC is separate from you individually, which helps ensure liability protection. And yes, if you're the only member, an operating agreement is still crucial. Step 12, file your beneficial ownership information report with FinCen. Now that your LLC is formed, let's make sure it's fully and legally protected. There are 2 things you should do to keep it protected. First, get business insurance. Your LLC protects your personal assets. Business insurance protects your business assets. The exact policies you need depend on what you're doing, but at a minimum, you'll need general business liability insurance. Talk to a qualified insurance agent for more details. If you need the best one, let me know in the comments below and I'll send it to you. Second, operate your LLC like a separate real business. You're the owner of your LLC, you're not the LLC itself. Keep your personal and business spending and expenses completely separate. Sign documents on behalf of the LLC, not as an individual. Mixing your business and personal spending drastically waters down the protection an LLC provides. Step 2, your brand. Before we jump into brand though, please hit that subscribe button below. I upload videos weekly just like this one about legal strategies to help your business grow and avoid lawsuits. Your brand is the most valuable asset in your business. Just ask Alex Hormozi.
And this concept that I'm going to explain to you is how I built a 7.8 million person audience across all these platforms in the past 40 months or so. I sold over 1 million copies of my last 2 books and do deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars in our holding company, acquisition.com. That is why you build a brand. Or at least that's why I built mine.
It's how you're recognized by your customers. It's a huge factor in your reputation. And when your brand has a loyal following, people will buy just because it's your brand. So just imagine how financially devastating it would be to spend months and thousands of dollars choosing a brand name, building your brand, building a website, and marketing your brand, only to find out that you don't have the rights to use your brand name. You'd have to start all over from scratch. Let's make sure this doesn't happen to you by making sure your brand name is not only legal for you to use, but also illegal for someone else to use. You do this with trademarks. From a legal standpoint, trademarks protect anything you can imagine that identifies your brand. It may include the name, the logo, and even colors, smells, or sounds. Play-Doh, for example, has a trademark for the unique smell of their putty. When starting your business, a trademark for the brand name is the most important and first trademark to focus on. There are lots of hurdles to being able to trademark a name, and I don't have time to get into them all right now, but I'm going to give you the most common one, your brand name itself. Before I tell you how to trademark your brand name, it's important to understand that trademark law isn't there to make starting a business difficult. It's really not. It's to prevent people from confusing one brand from another. If someone throws up a website, uses your brand name, and offers similar products, thereby tricking people into thinking they're buying from you, it's your brand reputation that's damaged. You could lose a lot of money and get slammed on social media, even though the fake website had nothing to do with you at all. And without a trademark, there's really nothing that you can legally do to make them take down that website. In order to successfully trademark your brand name, step 1 is to choose a name that's arbitrary and unique. It sounds scary to choose a name that may not have anything to do with what you plan to sell, but look at brands like Nike and Adidas and Haagen-Dazs and Amazon and Apple. Their brand names have nothing to do with what they sell, and they're doing just fine. Choosing a unique and arbitrary brand name does 2 things. It reduces the likelihood of someone else having it, and you'll also have a much better chance of protecting your brand name with a trademark and making it illegal for someone else to use. Not all brand names can be protected with a trademark though. If a name is generic as it relates to products or services you're selling, you won't be able to get a trademark. For example, if your brand name is Apple and you're selling the fruit apples, you can't trademark it because Apple is just literally the definition of what it's selling. Fun fact, my wife really hates this example because I use it literally multiple times a day on calls with clients, and I'm using it again here. There are 3 ways you can name your brand, and here they are. In order of hardest to trademark to easiest to trademark. Your first option is a descriptive name. A descriptive name describes what the product is, what it does, who it's for, or any other major component of the product. For example, if an online course is called E-commerce Money Making Academy, and the course is for e-commerce sellers to make money, that would be descriptive. My coaching and course creator clients use descriptive names a lot. It's understandable, but descriptive names are the hardest to trademark and are often rejected. So I would try to avoid these if you can. Next up, you can use a suggestive name. Suggestive names can be a bit easier to trademark because they hint at what the product is rather than spelled out the way that descriptive names do. Chicken of the Sea is a brand name of tuna fish. The name and image suggest that, but don't actually outright say what it is or what is being offered. Your last and best option for naming your brand is an arbitrary name. An arbitrary name is one that has nothing to do with the product or services, and which makes it the easiest type of name to trademark. Using Apple again as an example, since Apple sells computers and other devices, not fruit, the name Apple can be trademarked because it has nothing to do with the brand name itself. It has nothing to do with what the brand is selling, computers. Now that you've chosen a name for your brand that can be trademarked, making it someone else illegal to use, it's time to make sure the name is legal for you to use. Your brand name cannot be the same or even similar to someone else's if they're selling similar products or services. It can be very complex to figure out whether names are too similar, but here's what I generally recommend and how to figure it out. First, pull up Google and type in your exact brand name. Be sure to put the quotes around the brand name, as that tells the search engine you want it to find that exact phrase. If the brand name you've chosen pops up And if it's associated with the same or similar products or services that you're trying to sell, you can't use it. If you don't see any similar products or services, your next step is to search for your brand name again. But this time, get rid of the quotes around it. Look for any similar names that pop up, including names with misspellings, vowel substitutions, consonant substitutions, and word or number substitutions. Next, look for similar names where they're selling products or services similar to yours. Write down all the names that follow under the following categories. The other name is identical or very similar, and the goods and services are the same or closely related. The name is identical or very similar, and the goods and services are somewhat related. The name is somewhat similar, and the goods and services are the same or closely related. The name is identical or very similar, and the goods and services are somewhat related. The name is somewhat similar, and the goods and services are somewhat related. Next, repeat the search process while searching domain names. Then, search your state trademark website. Then search for federal trademarks with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, or USPTO for short. I go into detail in other videos about how to search the USPTO. Like I said, it can be very complex, but stick with me because it's a lot less complex than building a successful brand and having to unexpectedly change the name because someone else trademarked it. Once you've confirmed that the name is good to use, it's time to get your trademark registered. The process starts by filing the trademark application online with the USPTO. The process of getting a trademark in today's timeframe takes around 18 to 24 months from the filing date to the date you actually get your trademark registration. With more and more online businesses showing up every day, it's more important than ever to make sure that you submit your trademark application as early as possible. Now let's move into step 3 of your product. But before we do, remember to stick around until the end, where I'll tell you how you can find out in just 60 seconds where your business is vulnerable to being sued. Products can be physical, they can be digital, or even services, all of which have different steps to consider. Without products to offer people, you won't make any money whatsoever. So it's important to ensure that your products are not only valuable, but legal to sell and illegal for anyone else to sell. This is especially true if you sell physical products. Before you bring physical products to the market, you need to make sure they're legally compliant to sell. If they're not, you could face serious consequences, including hefty financial penalties, removal of your products from the market, and even legal action. I also give you an amazing tool I recommend that tells you which compliance challenges your products and services need to navigate, so stick with me. When making sure a physical product is legal to sell, ask yourself these questions. First, how does the product work? Do a patent search to see if it's under patent. Is it a new invention or new design of some kind? If it is, patent it. Does it require warning labels? Does it require instructions on how to safely use it? Is it consumable? Can it be applied to the body? Both consumables and products applied to the body are a lot riskier. You should also check with your business insurance company to make sure it'll be included in your policy. Second, who will use your product? Will it be kids, adults, or both? Products for kids or that kids will use have more and specialized compliance requirements. Third, what is it made of? Depending upon what it is, they may involve lab testing of the components and ingredients. You can't necessarily rely on your manufacturer to give you accurate information. For example, if you sell jewelry and tell your customers it's made out of sterling silver when it's not, this could get you into serious trouble. If it's a food product, you'll need correct, accurate ingredient and nutrition labels with label information listed in the correct order. Fourth, where is it made? Is it made in the US or is it made overseas? If it's made overseas, you have extra layers of compliance to navigate, and you can't rely on what the manufacturer tells you, as many countries have more lax regulations than the US. If your product is made in the US, the manufacturer will be required to have a certification. If your designs on your products are made by someone else, make sure the rights for the designs are passed to you so that the designer doesn't use your design for other people's stuff. Also, make sure that you copyright your designs. And speaking of copyrights, if you create digital products, online courses, or any other type of original content, make sure your content, including your website, is legal to use. For example, ADA compliant, and also make sure to register the copyrights to prevent the inevitable copycat from stealing your hard-earned work. Now, about that amazing tool to help you figure out what you need to do to ensure your product is compliant. It's called the Regulatory Robot, and the link to it is below. The Regulatory Robot asks you a series of questions about your product and then makes recommendations for steps you need to take to meet the applicable product standards. Labeling, requirements, testing and documentation, certification requirements, and any other facility type requirements. The tough part about researching product compliance is that the US government agencies operate their own websites and they're all separate. So there's really no official one-stop shop for product regulatory information in the US. It actually makes it super challenging. But as I like to remind my clients, it's still a lot less challenging than getting slapped with a lawsuit and fined millions of dollars, or having to stop selling your products and losing out on all the sales you'll never make. Step 4, people. Just like you don't have a business without a product, you don't have a business without the people you need to buy your product or service, or help with the things like content, design, compliance, marketing, insurance, and so on. Depending upon how your business is set up and what you offer, you could have customers, partners, employees or contractors, competitors, vendors, suppliers, and manufacturers. You can protect your business by using services agreements, non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs for short, terms of service, privacy policy, disclaimers, partnership and operating agreements, independent contractor agreements, and employment agreements. A lot of people don't want to go through the trouble of using written contracts and agreements, but it's dangerous not to, and here's why. There's an old adage that says something like there are 3 sides to every story. Party 1 side, party 2 side, and the side that was actually written down. People can be conveniently forgetful, especially when remembering what was actually said hurts them instead of helps them. Written agreements ensure both sides are clear on what's expected and what happens if their expectations aren't met. Written agreements also serve as liability protection and help avoid any disputes. If someone wants to dispute a properly created and worded written agreement, the parties involved will need to testify in court, which takes a lot of time and money. A written agreement also starts off your business relationship on a positive note, which surprises some people. Some people think it's a sign of distrust, but really, a written agreement is a sign of a professional who actually cares about doing good work and ensuring that both parties get what they need from the relationship. And it puts both parties on the same page. That's why if someone you want to work with is really unwilling to enter into a written agreement, it's usually a giant red flag, and I would avoid it. Written agreements also provide financial benefits. They give you potential negotiation leverage because you present as a serious professional business owner, and others are likely to take more seriously. As for exactly what should be in these agreements and which ones you should use, here's a good rule of thumb. Anytime you form a relationship and are either performing services for money or paying money for services, you should have a written agreement in place. Written agreements can be very complex, so make sure you take the time to do them right or seek out services of a qualified attorney to help you out. But answering the following questions will get most of the important details in place. What are the terms of the agreement? Are they simple, protective, and flexible enough to meet both parties' needs? Who are the parties involved? Who will do what? Who is paying who? Exactly what services will be performed and exactly what amount of money will be paid? What happens if something goes wrong? What are the penalties and damages if something goes wrong or it takes longer than promised? When will the services be performed? When will the money be paid? When will notice have to be sent if something goes wrong? When does the agreement actually end? Where will the services be performed and where will the money be sent? Where will you sue if something goes wrong? How will the services be performed? And how can the money be paid? How can you send notice if something goes wrong? And how can you actually sue? So there you have it, my ultimate 4-part protect your business blueprint to legally start a business so that you can make money online and protect yourself from lawsuits, copycats, and other serious threats. Business, brand, products, and people. BBPP. And as promised, here's my free 60-second Protect Your Business quiz to find out for free where your business is vulnerable to being sued. This quiz will guide you through all 4 parts of my Protect Your Business blueprint and give you a score for each part, all in literally 1 minute. The link is in the description below.